Good morning, members. On behalf of the Economic Development Panel, I would like to welcome the deputations as well as the administration to today's meeting. This is about the future development of the electricity market. Today, we are inviting views from individuals and deputations. If necessary, you can put on your earphones and then for the floor, Channel 0, Channel 1, Cantonese, Channel 2, English, Channel 3, 普通话. First of all, let me remind persons in attendance, other than electrical members as well as specified public officers in attendance, anybody who comes here to speak and for your submissions, they are not protected by the powers and privileges under the Electrical Powers and Privileges Ordinance Cap 382. Here, I would like to invite the deputations and individuals to speak one by one. Each of you will have 4 minutes. In accordance with our practice, the panel has already uploaded the written submissions received to our electrical website, and a copy has been sent to members. Therefore, when you speak, you only have to point out the main points in your submission. There's no need to repeat everything in your written submission. If you haven't submitted anything in writing, or if you have anything in writing to supplement your speech, I would like to urge you to provide the submission after the meeting, as you have only got 4 minutes to speak. In addition, when you speak, please do not speak in a cocktail language so as to avoid causing inconvenience to interpretations. While you were on your way, I haven't been able to introduce the public officers in attendance. Today, we have Mr. Wong Kam-sing, Secretary for the Environment, Mr. Vincent Liu, Deputy Secretary for the Environment, Mr. Donald Ng, PAS for the Environment, Mrs. Dorothy Ma, PAS for the Environment, Ms. Esther Wang, PAS for the Environment, as well as Mr. Alan Chow, Chief Electrical and Mechanical Engineer from the Environment Bureau. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to give the floor to the deputations and individuals. For the first to speak, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Yip Hing Kwok from the Amoy Gardens Joint Owners Committee. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members and officials, and ladies and gentlemen. I'm from Amoy Gardens. I would like to talk about our views. First of all, personally, I welcome the majority of the views in the consultation paper. The topic will have far-reaching effects on the overall social and economic conditions of Hong Kong. So I think the target must be that the provision of electricity must be done at a reasonable price, and it should be safe, reliable, and efficient. I've got the following suggestions to make. First of all, in relation to the fuel mix, it is said that RE should take up 25% and then nuclear power 60%. I'm afraid this is going to add pressure to the future tariff levels. I think there should be adjustments to the fuel mix. Say, for example, for the natural gas, it should be reduced by 10%. And the 10% should go to the nuclear power so as to balance the different forces on tariff. Because the Daya Bay nuclear plant has been safe, it has given us a lot of confidence. And in fact, the cost to have nuclear power generation is lower, and also it is zero emission. We don't have free lunch. If you want to have lower levels of pollution and yet you want to drive down the tariff levels, it is impossible. For us, we just want to have the following. That is, as usual in the past few decades, we want to have quality service in power supply by the two companies. And of course, we want to strike a good balance among the different policy objectives. We want the prices to be reasonable. I hope that we won't be over-relying on natural gas, because this won't be a good fuel mix and this will only drive up the tariff levels. There are calls to greatly increase the use of renewable energy. But then, as pointed out in the paper, we are constrained by the natural conditions, so it's better to rely on waste to energy. We're going to have more waste facilities. Therefore, waste to energy will be a good idea, and we can reduce waste, and we can also have a green source of energy. And so I think we can give more consideration to this source of energy. And then for RE, I think in the future there will be opportunities to import energy generated by wind and solar. In the future, I think connecting with the southern China net grid will be feasible, but then there's still a lot of differences. Therefore, I think it's better to consider the matter in greater details before this can be done. And then for the power companies, other than a reliable supply, we need to have adequate reserve capacities. Currently, the two companies have got over 20% in terms of the reserve capacity. This is in line with the international practices. I hope that the two power companies will maintain a good reserve level. Don't jeopardize it. And please do not follow the overseas practice in order to go after a better RO rate of return, and then they will lower the reserve level. Other than reliable supplies, I think we need to exercise demand management. And I'm in support of the government's suggestions to do so. Your time is up.
I hope that the government can consider my views. Deputations. A list of the deputations has been tabled. And now I'm only to read out the names of the persons who are going to speak. Mr. An Man Yu. Thank you, Chairman. We've got this 10-year SCAs, and there have been views in the community calling for the opening up of the market to introduce competition. But going by overseas experience like the US and the UK, opening up the electricity market may not necessarily bring benefits. It may affect the reliability of supply. Introduction of competition may not necessarily lead to a lowering of the tariffs. We've got 4 energy policy objectives, and reliability ranks top amongst them. And without adequate data, it is difficult for us to assess whether the options of importing energy from the mainland and increasing the supply of natural gas to 60% will bring any benefits at all. Under the SCA arrangement now, I hope that the two power companies can enhance transparency of their information. They should release more financial data. The government should also tighten the permitted ROR and review the calculation how the returns are calculated. The two power companies should try to drive down costs and rationalize their accounts. The government should also give the EXCO the power to vet the applications for tariff increase that can ensure that the two power companies are doing their work prudently. Also, we also hope that the government can review the reserve capacity level. Now it stands at 20 to 30%. The DAB believes that the government should review whether the reserve capacity should be lowered to suppress the need for fixed asset investment and enhance the pressure on tariff rise. In this latest consultation, the government has not mentioned anything about renewable energy. It's been very vague on the subject. We doubt very much whether the government is determined to develop renewable energy. DAB hopes that the government can consider actively installing more waste-to-energy facilities and exploring the use of cleaner energy, and also cut down on the use of fossil fuels and improve the environment of Hong Kong. Next, Dr. Hong Tinyao. The Consumer Council is happy to see the expanded scope of the review here. Compared to the last consultation on the fuel mix, the scope is wider now. The present approach will not be able to bring meaningful and significant changes to the long-term development of the electricity market. The government needs to make real changes. With regard to the rate of return on investment, the electricity market is mature. The risk of investment is low. The CC believes that the stakeholders or shareholders and the consumers should benefit from the low-cost debt. The present arrangement means that there will be an overinvestment on the facilities, and the costs are shouldered by the consumers, and the consumers are made to bear the risk of the market. The CC believes that the rate of return should not be higher than 5.25 to 6%. It will be anything above that level will be unfair to consumers. The government should also be concerned about the fuel mix. And the proposed fuel mix will adversely affect the low-income families. We should look at the structure of the tariff so that the fuel poverty problem will not deteriorate. The high tariff has an impact on low-income families, but we don't have data on that, so it's difficult for us to come up with solutions. On renewable energy, CC believes that we should be studying into the feed-in tariff as adopted in overseas jurisdictions. We are now adopting the investment-based return in Hong Kong, and I think the overseas approach is better than our present approach. The power companies own coal-fired and gas-fired generating units, and if they have to buy energy from solar generation or wind power generation plants, then they would they would think it's better for them to actually do that kind of power generation. So they would not agree to distributed generation. So we hope that the government can encourage more distributed generation and also introduce more generating plants. And we hope that the two power companies can also make transparent the information on transmission generation, and they also should also disclose more information on the energy efficiency and what consumers would benefit, what kind of studies that they have made in relation to renewable energy, and what is their impact on consumers. We believe that an energy commission should be established. And the commission can ensure that accurate information is provided to us, and also stakeholders can access such information so that the stakeholders can make the relevant studies and assessment. In many markets, consumers have a role to play in establishing such an energy commission. This is the right time for Hong Kong to establish this energy commission. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hong. Mr. Yao Kin-wo. Thank you, Chairman, Secretary. For a long time, there have been a lot of discussions on opening up the electricity market. There are views that the market should be opened up. The reasons being that we can enhance competition. Well, this should be the right. But then in the past decade, overseas jurisdictions' experience has shown that there have been problems in opening up the market. For example, in Australia, the market has been opened up, but then the electricity tariffs have increased by 2 times. For the UK, the market investors are not willing to make new investments after the market has been opened up. For example, installing new generation electricity plants, driving down the reserve capacity to a very dangerous level. So the DAB believes that in opening up the market, we should avoid such mistakes. And I think the opening up process is very complicated. We have to overcome hurdles in legislation and asset ownership and so on. And if we are to introduce new players, the crux lies in who should build the infrastructure facilities. Will the 2 power companies be responsible using the model of BOT, or will it be the government who is doing the investment? Now, in opening up the market, we should also consider the cost effectiveness of the CLP, and HKE costs is 30 to 40% higher than that of CLP in the transmission of electricity. If we are to standardize the tariffs, then there will be very complicated problems involved. So in opening up the market and the problems therein, DAB thinks that we must resolve these problems first, and then we should tread carefully. And especially after the opening of the market, the domestic users and the commercial users, will we get better benefits, more benefits? Would we be given more choices? Will we be enjoying lower tariffs? Will we be enjoying more reliable or more, better quality service? This is something that we should consider. Now, as to the regulatory mechanism, there have been suggestions that the EXCO should be given a wider scope to vet the tariff increase applications, and whether we should be lowering the 9.99% permitted rate of return, and also whether there should be a review on the incentive and penalty mechanism. We support all these proposals. With regard to reserve capacity, there should be a review. Now, the percentage is 20 to 30%. DAB believes that the government should ask the 2 power companies to lower this level to suppress the investment on fixed assets and to alleviate the pressure on a tariff hike. And the DAB also suggests that the reserve capacity should be lowered to below 20%. And that would and what is its impact on, say, the power generation capacity, etc., if there is a reduction. Also, we propose that renewable energy should be developed. The government should continue to study the development of renewable energy in Hong Kong. We should also build the more waste-to-energy facilities and to generate more RE as a result. Ms. Wong Wai Lan. Hong Kong has many high rises, and we should stick to our 4 energy policy objectives to ensure that we have a reliable, safe, affordable, and environmentally friendly source of supply. Many countries have introduced competition, but there are problems. We may not be necessarily lowering the tariff. Conversely, the reliability has been jeopardized. Hong Kong doesn't have the conditions to introduce competition. We have a small-scale market. The 2 companies differ in their size. Our land is limited. But because of all these uncertainties and considering the risks of power supply, we think that it is not the right time to introduce competition. Our association believes that the SCA has worked well, and without any major changes in the market, the present duration of the SCA should remain unchanged. And before the expiry of the SCA, we should do a review. Now, power supply is a capital-intensive industry, and we need to ensure that there is a good return. With regard to the ROR, the government should discuss with the 2 power companies to agree on an ROR agreed by both sides. and the government should make public information on the basis for formulating the ROR. Without a better arrangement, we believe that the present tariff approval mechanism should remain unchanged, and we should still implement the incentive penalty scheme, and we should cut down on carbon emission. With regard to renewable energy, power supply is costly, and we should have a good reserve capacity. Unless there are major breakthroughs in power generation, it is not cost effective to rely on renewable energy to generate electricity. I hope that the public can understand this. Nevertheless, we should encourage the two power companies to steady developing RE and to cut down on carbon emission and air pollutants emission. And we suggest that the roadmap for developing RE should be incorporated into the SCA, and the relevant technology should be brought in and introduced. We also propose or suggest the introduction of AMI, and also give due regard to privacy in doing that. We should encourage users to use energy more effectively, and the government should ask new buildings to incorporate energy-saving facilities to cut down on electricity consumption. Next one, Mr. Koo Wai Mok. Chairman, members, government officials, deputations, good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the Electrical Secretariat for uploading the over 100 submissions onto the website so that we can understand what the comments of the deputations are. Having read the over 100 submissions, I would like to congratulate the government officials from the ENB. Well, over 90% of the submissions are in support of the proposals in the consultation paper, and that is the broad regulatory framework should remain unchanged. But then, on behalf of the WWF, I must... WWF, yes. Not many deputations have made detailed proposals to the ENB. I must admit that as a Green Group, which has been concerned about the development of the electricity market, we don't have the time to communicate with the deputations one-on-one. We've been talking about two proposals all along, which can help us achieve a more environmental friendly source of supply. We do have such proposals, but we don't have the time to communicate our views to you. So I would like to share our views with you here. We have two main proposals on how to, within the existing regulatory framework, boost our environmental performance. First, in the incentive penalty scheme, we should link the number of generating units to their rate of return. The more units to be built, the lower the ROR, so that the companies can have an incentive to help cut the number of units to be built. How can we do that? By implementing energy-saving measures. We hope that the electricity companies can do more on that front. We should provide incentives to the two power companies so that they can do a better job in the future. So we hope that the incentive penalty scheme can be revised so that the two companies can take part in energy saving and help SMEs and housing estates to save energy. Second, part on renewable energy. different submissions have mentioned about development of renewable energy, how we can do a better job, what roadmap should there be. We hope that in the development of the electricity market in the future, there should not just be a permitted rate of return for the two power companies in generating RE. Other players should also be given a guaranteed rate of return if they develop RE. And this measure can encourage more players to join in developing RE, and that can drive down the costs of RE generation. ENB, we hope that they can give a guaranteed price to the RE developers for reference to these developers so that they can consider whether to develop RE. Next. Dr. Yu Yunqing. I'm from the World Green Organization, WGO. The WGO supports opening up the markets in phases. After 2024, the 15% natural increase in the electricity market, for that part, we will be asking new players to help provide that. And there should be a separation or segregation of generation and network. And then the generation will be undertaken by the two power companies. And new players should be asked to join, and the bidding approach should be adopted to ask the suppliers to supply power. The beauty of this proposal is that the new players should be operating more efficiently, and they should be given a lower rate of return to benefit consumers, and consumers can enjoy lower tariffs. New players will take up this 15% share in the market, and that won't be a problem to the two power companies. The new market should be shouldered by the new players, and the existing benefits of the two power companies won't be harmed. Under the present financial arrangement, we should be asking the two power companies to separate the different accounts for their different items so that the divestment can be done in the future. In overseas jurisdiction, the costs of generation and transmission are broken down. In monitoring the new or rather, if we are to introduce new players, the two companies must enhance their efficiency and effectiveness, and overall, the costs will be driven down. We talk about economy of scale in power supply. The power companies, the overseas power companies may supply power to Hong Kong. In reducing carbon emission, the government can set targets.
Otherwise, it will be required to pay a hefty fine. International examples have shown that the return on investment must be proportional. If it is not attractive, then the supplier will cut down on the investments, and also quality may be compromised. Eventually, the reliability of power supply may be affected. So the entire objective of market reform policies is to provide energy security, namely that there should be sufficient supply of electricity at a reliable, affordable price, and that we should also have hedgings to offset the risk of price fluctuation. Right now, the two power companies are shifting the risk onto the consumers. So in the past, adjustments to the tariff was due to the rapid rise in the price of fuels and natural gas, and that is why the WGO said that other than the west gas, being transmitted to the east, we would like to know whether or not we would suggest that the two power companies should, make bulk purchases, and then the government should also be responsible for centralizing procurement. And we can start with 10% of the procurement and then we can lock up the price of natural gas at the medium price level, and then eventually we can compare the overall price increase and conduct a review. We can see that the two power companies are now spending, billions of dollars to make the procurement. Then I think we can achieve the purpose of price stability and make reference of the approach adopted in Singapore. Mr. Shin Pak-man, Chairman. Every time there is a number 8 typhoon signal, the reporters would like to go to the airport and interview the travelers who are stranded at the airport. On one occasion, I heard one tourist saying that, I can tell you, the people of Hong Kong, that without the central government taking care of Hong Kong is finished. Having heard that, I feel really, bad. I believe all of you will feel the same. But then you may have the DNA of local native Hong Kong persons. I feel, rather sad, because when I heard the Mainlander say this, I asked myself, when have the people of Hong Kong become a burden for our country? Some people suggest that we should go for desalination, but then the desalination requires not only investment in the capital equipments, we also need to consume a lot of electricity. And we're now told that it's possible that we have to buy electricity from the mainland, where apparently that plan has now been abandoned. We're told that we propose to generate electricity in Hong Kong. But in order to resolve the problem of air pollution, we have to generate electricity using natural gas. And where does natural gas come from? Again, we will be having another typhoon signal. The tourists will say, if China doesn't provide us with natural gas, Hong Kong is finished. So the Lion Rock Institute, therefore, would steadfastly object to Hong Kong people being a burden to our country. I don't think you should procure natural gas, 100% of our natural gas from other countries other than the mainland. The pipes already been laid in the mainland. But if we could have an LNG, station in Hong Kong, then when we talk to the oil companies in the mainland, we would at least have some bargaining power. Also, if you're worried that energy prices may fluctuate, and I can only say that the Japanese are entirely relying on overseas supply of natural gases. They are paying very expensive prices, more than $10 per unit. In Hong Kong, we are paying more than $20 per unit. The mainland now is also importing natural gas. So I don't think we can become a burden on the country, on our motherland anymore. Of course, when capital investments have to be made, I understand that another major battlefield is in respect of the reasonable rate of return. We have been enjoying 20 to 30 years of low inflation. I don't know whether or not this will be sustainable. So this is the game theory. If the rate of return is too low, what the consequence is that if the rate of return is set at a too high level, we have to pay a very high price for electricity. So do you believe that it's like us, flying an airplane, the landing is so beautiful, and that we should really pay for a margin of safety? I'm worried that 20, 30 years from now, like Henry Tang said, all of us would have been gone, and there will be no power supply. And we have to buy electricity from our country, from motherland. And even if we pay a very expensive price, 20, 30 years from now, there will continue to be storms, and if the planes cannot take off, they are stranded, then the tourists will say, without the central government taking care of Hong Kong is finished. Mr. Siu Ka-fai, thank you. The Liberal Party has the following submissions in respect of the consultation paper. Normally, in any country, discussion regarding electricity would focus on 3 topics: reliability of supply, secondly, whether the tariffs are affordable, and thirdly, the pollution caused by power generation and how it affects the air quality. In Hong Kong, it is Hong Kong Electric and CLP which are responsible for supplying electricity. The supply reliability undoubtedly ranks among the best in the world, and I will not deliberately dwell on this point. I'll focus on the other two aspects. How can we ensure that our tariffs are affordable for the public? I believe that if the power companies make more profits, the public will have to pay more. If they, make less profit, then we don't have to pay that much. The power companies are now relying on the rate of return, which is a certain percentage of the fixed asset value. Used to be 13.5 to 15%, now is 9.9%. Going forward, the government proposed that it be set at 6 to 8%. Over the last decade or so, we all know that the interest rate is almost zero. So I think the current rate of return should be still very substantial. As a political party, of course, we hope that the tariff could be set as low as possible. Secondly, I'd like to address the question of cost. The Bureau now proposed that 50% of the power should be generated by using RE, or natural gas rather. But the natural gas is very expensive. The government and the mainland has signed this agreement regarding the transmission of natural gas from Western China. We really wonder whether we should, have 50% of our fuel mix, using natural gas. Shouldn't we consider other alternative sources of supply so that price could be reduced? Another point is about nuclear energy. I believe we all know that by 2020, in the PRD, there will be 50 nuclear power plants. So if people refuse to use nuclear energy, I think people are worried about the risk. But we all know that the cost of nuclear energy compared with natural gas, it's 52 cents per unit if it's nuclear, and it's more than $1 if it is generated using natural gas. So while we shoulder the risk, we don't share the profits. So I wonder whether or not we can consider using more nuclear energy. Regarding renewable energy such as wind power and hydro power and solar energy, we could achieve that. That's fine, but we have to consider the question of cost. I heard some deputations suggesting that the regressive tariff rate, they have some reservations about that. They instead propose that we should have a progressive tariff. I think the operators would like to lower the cost. They don't want to incur any expenses which are not necessary. Electricity is an important part of the business cost. If they use more electricity, they will be required to pay more. This is actually adding to the burden of the business sector. I believe that if we have a regressive system, they will still come up with ways to reduce the costs. And the Liberal Party, therefore, supports this progressive system. Mr. Lee Chen-kung. Some deputations refer to the permitted rate of return. We all know that more than 10 years ago, the permitted rate of return could be up to 13.5 to 15% of the net asset value. Presently, it's 9.99%. Using the fixed asset value as the benchmark for the two power companies means that they will simply build more units and come up with more excuses, such as protecting the environment, to acquire additional facilities, add to the natural asset, and therefore increase the rate of return. Earlier, we were told that we have to reduce the emission of sulfur dioxide, and therefore desulfurization facilities had to be installed. But these generators are very expensive. Right now, it is only now that the government has come up with the idea that we should lower the cost of the two power companies. As a power company, cost is very important. the cost would inevitably comprise of several items: the fuel cost, the cost of the generating units and the transmission facilities, maintenance, and also labor costs. What is left behind would be the profit, whether it's the fuels or interest charges. Basically, they are dropping all the time. Petrol prices have been declining steadily, and interest rates have been staying at close to 0%. So should we have a fair adjustment mechanism and a mathematical formula for the power company so that we can work out its rate of return rather than just relying on the fixed asset value? Because that would create room for downward adjustment and the burden on the public could be relieved. In the consultation paper, as some members have pointed out, the transmission of natural gas from Western China to the east, you understand that this is an environmentally friendly and clean source of energy, which is also cheaper. But let us not forget that many countries now fighting for natural gas, including Japan and even China. So I don't think we should be buying second-hand natural gas because China is importing natural gas from Russia and Eastern Europe. Furthermore, we have to pay for the maintenance of the transmission pipes and so on. Since there's so many nuclear power plants in the PRD region, why is it that in Hong Kong we can come up with the idea of building an incinerator? Why can't we build an artificial island to accommodate a nuclear power plant? Since Mr. Wong, you're in charge of the Bureau, perhaps you can also think about this. Our important objective is to reduce emission and also to reduce the burden on the business sector and the public. Finally, connecting the two power grids would bring about advantages. But the point is that Hong Kong Electric and CLP are two separate companies, and the major, Hong Kong Electric is responsible for supplying electricity to Hong Kong Island, CLP for Kowloon and New Territories. The standards adopted by both countries are different, including the systems and facilities. And there's also difference in terms of the supply reliability. But I think this is something that we can compromise. Mr. Wong Chau-Fung, thank you. Mr. Secretary, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Hong Kong, being an international financial city, having a reliable and an affordable electricity supply is most essential to the economy of Hong Kong. The public believe that starting from 2018, we should introduce new competition into the electricity market. The government believes that by introducing competition, we can increase the bargaining power of the users. But so far, there is no evidence to show that competition can improve the power supply and that tariff could be reduced. The Consumer Council in 2014 December published a report on the study of the electricity market and concluded that liberalizing the electricity market may not have desirable consequences because it will result in unequal bargaining power by the consumers and the business sector. So we think that the market in Hong Kong is not ready yet for competition. Overseas experience shows that bringing in competition may have negative impact in terms of power supply. It may not enhance the bargaining power of the consumers, and therefore we have reservations about liberalizing the market. The current scheme of control arrangements always have proven to be an effective way to achieve the objective of our energy policy. And I think the government will continue to enhance the content of that agreement, including the further strengthening the incentive and penalty scheme so that the power companies will have great incentive to make improvements. In monitoring the economic environment, the trend for fuel prices and so on, I think the government should adjust the rate of return to 6 to 8%, and that the approval should be made by EXCO. We therefore welcome the government listening to public opinion and is now adopting the model that we should generate electricity locally. We also hope that the government will continue to consider introducing more sources of renewable energy and whether or not it's feasible, and that they should conduct further studies and to explain to the public about the pros and cons of using more nuclear energy. Next, Ms. Leung Hoi Sha. Thank you. I remember almost 10 years ago I represented Greenpeace to make comments about the electricity market here. Today I represent the same organization and I'm speaking on the same subject. The green groups always like to mock themselves and saying that it's very difficult to reduce carbon emission, because what the public is most concerned about is tariffs, and they're most concerned about the monopoly which the two power companies enjoy. More than 100 submissions have been received, and apparently there is a unanimous view that in Hong Kong the most important thing for us is reliable power supply. The SCA is a very good arrangement. All such submissions and the public sentiments that we have observed seems to be, two polar ends of a spectrum. So all along in our society, there's been discussions about problems in the electricity market. Of course, the supply reliability in Hong Kong cannot be doubted. But we also pay a very heavy price for that. For example, the power companies are enjoying a monopoly power. Consumers don't have too much bargaining powers. The power companies have shifted all the costs onto the shoulder of the consumers, and one wonder whether they can further improve their cost efficiency. And because of the two power companies enjoying the monopolistic powers, new entrants cannot enter the market. All these shows that the current situation is not desirable and that it is not responding to new expectations in our community, especially are concerned about the challenges brought about by climate change. So I don't think we can afford to stay put. We must make some reforms for our electricity market, or else we will be wasting another 10 years. The green groups recently had made a joint statement. One important point in that statement is that we should conserve energy. We believe that the two power companies should be given a target on energy conservation, and that we should try to lower the peak demand for electricity to tie in with the incentive and penalty scheme. The two power companies should no longer rely on expanding its capital assets to make profit, but rather instead they should make profit by conserving energy. The Greenpeace also suggests that other than, I think we should set up also a fund for energy conservation. If the government were to inject funds into the money into these funds, and also big corporations also inject funds, cash into that funds, and then we can monitor the quality of the energy conservation projects. If these projects achieve a saving of energy by 1%, the power companies will be rewarded. Otherwise, it should be punished. So by setting such targets, providing the incentives, and also committing resources, we can achieve energy conservation in Hong Kong. I don't think we should delay this any further.
We cannot blindly praise our energy market, and we shouldn't just follow what has already been done. Otherwise, we're just wasting more time. Next, Mr. Wong Lok Tak. For this matter, the Federal of Industries have got the following to say, 4 points in fact. First of all, when we devise the policies for the future development of our electricity market, we must make sure that there will be safety, reliability, so that we can have economic development. Moreover, expenditure on tariff is something we cannot avoid. So the power companies must make sure that the tariff is reasonable. And it is also it has also been pointed out that power generation is the main source of pollution. We have to cut down on the emission. But then between environmental protection and affordability, there must be an appropriate balance. As to whether we can introduce a new supplier, for the time being, we can't have the conditions ready. But in the long term, consumers should have the choice to choose a new supply. We believe that with newcomer, probably there will be innovation in the operational mode. And then we need to encourage energy conservation and use of RE. When the government draws up the policies, we should encourage energy conservation on the part of consumers. There should be coordination among government departments so as to facilitate the use of RE as well as energy conservation. We have got 5 specific points to make concerning the consultation. First of all, for the appropriate permitted rate of return, currently it is 9.99% of the ENFA. In 2013, there was the midterm review. A consultant has been engaged by the government, and given the low interest rate environment, the cost of financing is low. There's no risk, and it is suggested that it should be lowered to between 6 and 8%. We believe that the marginal profit is higher than the neighboring countries, and I'm sure there's room for driving down the permitted rate of return. We believe that post-2018, the permitted rate of return should be lowered to a more reasonable level. And then for CLP and Hong Kong E, they should be considering interconnection. I think the government should provide resources so that there will be direct competition between the two, and then we can also lower the respective reserve capacity, and then we can avoid the need to have new facilities. With interconnection, I think the facilities involved should not be added to the net fixed assets. Otherwise, will only drive up the rate of return. And then for the gas supply, we have a single supplier from the mainland. I think the 2 power companies can get something more competitive in the international market. So maybe the government of third party should build an LNG terminal so that we can avoid boosting the ENFA. And then for nuclear power generation, with advancement of technology, it is safer and safer, and it is not generating any greenhouse gases. The operating cost is stable, and it will help to stabilize the tariff. We should continue to get more electricity from the Daya Bay nuclear power plant. And we should also get a long-term contract for the supply. In this way, we can exercise monitoring. For energy conservation and promotion of REs, the new SCA should have incentives so that the power plants can enhance the relevant facilities. Thank you. Next, Mr. Chen Kok Kay. Thank you. I'm Chen Kok Kay, and I speak on behalf of Kwai Chung South Residents Federation. I think electricity tariff has got a lot to do with our livelihood. So I want to take this opportunity to express our views. We want to maintain the existing good service. At the same time, we don't want to see a huge increase in the tariff. For Kwai Chung, we have got 500,000 of people. More than 70 are living in public housing estates. We have got public facilities like Kwai Chung Hospital, Kwai Fong MTR Station, as well as Kwai Fong Theatre. So their operation would rely on highly reliable power supply. So we attach a lot of importance to stability or reliability of power supply. Otherwise, our quality of life will be affected. Recently, we've seen escalation of the prices of a lot of things, and so many low-income families in the district have got a heavier financial burden. So if we liberalize the power market and if that increases the tariff, then it will add to the burden of the low-income families. Therefore, we must consider affordability, in particular that of the lower-income earners. So make sure that the tariff is at a reasonable level. At the same time, the power companies should actively consider the feasibility of REs. And in the long term, we can protect the environment and we can green the community. The Consumer Council has earlier on suggested that perhaps the community should generate power by relying on small-scale gas-fired generating units. I think for RE, I think we must have reliable natural resources and sufficient land, but this is not the case in our area, and I don't think it will not be attractive to the investors. I hope that the government can plan comprehensively in relation to the development of RE, and we must also assess the affordability on the part of the communities. Yes, we believe that the electricity market should also move forward, but then before we liberalize the market, the case must be fully justified, and the government must make sure that competition can enhance reliability and operational efficiency while not making the tariff unreasonable. In the long term, any change to the electricity market should bring about a positive impact so as to make sure that the public at large will benefit. I hope both the government and lawmakers will consider this point and take into account the needs of the Kwai Chung residents. Next, Mr. Chairman Yun. Good morning. I'm just an ordinary citizen. Over the years, different walks of life have been expressing different views concerning the development of our electricity market. So either it is market mechanism or a government-led approach. I think both approaches have their own pros and cons. Regarding reliability, affordability, and environmental protection, I think if we are to have a hasty reform, the society as a whole has to pay a huge price, and also the risk may not be coped with by our future generations as well. So I opt for change, but not rapid changes, instead gradual changes. And maybe 10 years, 20 years should be the time given to carry out the changes. For the past 10 years, I've seen that the two companies have already had their rate of returns cut in the SCAs. For the future changes, I think basically we need to follow the mainstream ideas. It may not always be right, but at least we are catching up. We won't be lagging behind. For REs, I think we should consider waste to energy, hydropower, and also wind power. On Nama Island, we have the wind power station. Perhaps it may not be very effective, but at least it is the right approach. And I hope that the government will send a message to the market that we are waiting for changes instead of marking time. Let me say this once again, not that I want to see a major overhaul. I'm not talking about dramatic changes. Whether it be the government or the two power companies, I think if we can set aside some resources for development, then we can share the cost or the risk of the natural gas. Now, our market over-relies on two power companies only, and we shouldn't be focusing too much on natural gas power generation. It is an international city. I think we should accommodate more market players. Not that we must deliberately introduce competition, but at least we should diversify the market. That's all I want to say. Thank you. Next, Mr. Chen King-Fun. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Secretary and ladies and gentlemen. We should give consumers a choice. First of all, we need to allay the fears concerning nuclear power. We are concerned about tariff rates and we want to cut down on emissions. Since the Japanese nuclear incident, I think the government has been very conservative and the government is so prudent that it is going to cut down the ratio of power generated by nuclear energy. But then, will the government will citizens want to cut down on the share of nuclear power? By 2020, our neighboring cities will have already got over 50 nuclear power plants. It won't be affected by our positioning. And then tariff based on nuclear power generation will be lower. And then the cost of natural gas is $1.09, and then for the nuclear power from Daya Bay, it is 52 cents. Therefore, using nuclear power can ease the pressure on our tariff rate. So I think the government should face squarely the need to use nuclear power as a choice. Next, Ms. Kwok. Thank you. When we talk about power generation, we have to increase revenue. I think in Finland there is a dehumidifier that can help air conditioners to lower the demand for power by 80%. In the future, the auto market will be dominated by electric cars, so there will be an increase instead of a decrease in power demand. For most residents, since we're using LED lights, it is very energy efficient, so we are mainly using electricity for air conditioning. Therefore, we need to have a device to adjust the humidity, and in this way, we can lower the demand for electricity to run our air conditioners. I think in the next 5 to 50 years, if this is going to work, it will help us a lot. Next, Mr. Wu Jianglin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the Sen, as well as other officials, must have heard a lot about our concerns about the purchase of power. I'm just a layperson. I'm not too familiar with the details. I think we need to conserve energy. Now, in the proper consultation document, there is an innovative idea. We have this idea of an advanced metering infrastructure. In this way, electricity consumers will get more information about the peak hours of our electricity usage, and there can be incentives to encourage the consumers to cut down on electricity use, and then we will go for energy conservation. In this way, we can avoid over-regulation of the market, and we don't have to reduce what will be given to the power companies. As has been pointed out, we should greatly promote the use of electric cars, and then at the same time, we should also regulate the fuel used in the vehicles. We should promote the green fuels, and we can then cut down on the emissions. Thank you. Thank you. Next, Dr. C.W. Cho. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For the regulatory framework we've got, there are two power companies, CLP and Hong Kong U. They have vertical integration concerning their operation. According to information in the public domain, the reliability is over 99.999%. The tariff is lower than that in major cities in North America, etc. And then the pollutants have been greatly cut. The only regrettable thing is that consumers can't choose a company that they prefer when it comes to power generation. Perhaps we can follow the case of the telecommunications market. We should liberalize the market. We can introduce competition. Consumers will have more choices. We can also enhance the operational efficiency of the market. We can improve the quality of service. Tariffs can also come down. According to the experience in Australia, Europe, and North America, they have had liberation in the power market for a long time. But it has been found that the process of liberalization is distorted, long, and also complicated. And then it is not optimistic. Sometimes the price is too much. Hong Kong is a very small place. We lack resources of our own to generate electricity. We all opt for local generation, but then it is difficult to get land to build the generating units. And we suffer from this lack of land problem. We have to be prudent. If we are to liberalize the electricity market, what about the assets owned by the two privately owned companies? They cost $100 billion in terms of the infrastructural facilities. And therefore, I believe that in the short term, I think the market isn't ready. We haven't got the conditions to liberalize the market. Therefore, we should rather focus on ways to enhance the provisions in the existing SCA as well as the regulatory framework. We should look at the rate of return, the permitted rate of return, the investments permitted, and also how to share the cost of fuel, incentives and awards and penalties, the amount of reserve capacity. There should be how it should be decided. There should be energy conservation, waste to energy, RE, and also distributed generation. In addition, when the development plans submitted by the two companies are vetted, there should be an enhancement in the transparency. I hope that in due course there can be public hearings so that the public can air their views at such a forum. We understand that the main characteristics of the electricity market is that we need to invest heavily in the infrastructure. So the future regulatory framework should be one that has stability and clarity. We must also allow a reasonable permitted rate of return. But companies themselves should also be made to bear a reasonable level of risk. And this way, they will make sure that the investment will tie in with the future demand for electricity, and we can meet the policy objectives of the government, and we can meet the aspirations of the public. Thank you. Next, Mr. Lau Ping-Guan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the Deputy Chair of the SMEs Federation. In fact, I'm from the Hong Kong Small and Medium Enterprises General Association. I have been involved in the retail and export of electrical appliances, in particular kitchen appliances and other home appliances to China, Western Europe and North America. Now our tariffs are lower than that in many other big cities. But then if we can cooperate with the power companies and we should give concessions to SMEs, then I'm sure it will ease the burden on the SMEs and it can improve the business environment. I know that different users have got different demands and requirements. For those that are using the home appliances, the residential customers, if they're able to choose level 1 home appliances according to the energy efficiency label regime, then they can cut down on the expenditure on electricity. I think we should try to do something about the corporations, like cutting down the use of electricity in the non-peak hours, like after 6 p.m.
Not every SME knows how to implement energy conservation measures, especially the SMEs. So the government must do something. It should enhance publicity and work together with the two power companies. It should give concessions to SMEs so that they can be incentivized to do energy saving. The government has been subsidizing vehicles to save energy. Why can't it do the same for SMEs? We hope that the government can play the role of a monitor through enhancing the SCAs, including continuing to communicate with the users on the basis of the existing framework to do a better job in energy conservation and lessen the burden on SMEs. And among the reliability of supply, energy saving and tariff charging, a balance should be struck. Now the deputations have spoken. Then perhaps the Secretary, can you respond to the views just expressed? Chairman, members, I would like to thank the different deputations and members of the public for attending the discussion today. This is a 3-month public consultation, which will last till the end of this month. And on the latter half of this month, there will be a public consultation. We welcome you to give views in that occasion as well. I have heard many diverging views today. And generally speaking, you are in support of the overall direction of the consultation paper. Of course, you hold different views on the details. We will listen to you carefully, and we consider your views seriously. We all support that there should be a reliable supply of power because we have a denser environment in Hong Kong. And you aspire for energy supply, which is environmentally friendly and reliable. Well, you may hold different views on how the balance should be struck, depending on where you come from. But anyway, you are in support of more green measures. There should be the management of demand. It can save costs and it is greener. And you also discussed about investment into RE. In our consultation paper, we are also in support of development of RE and energy to waste to energy development and also distributed generation. We want to hear more views so that we can implement all these proposals in the future. Thank you, Secretary. I'll open the floor to members to ask questions. Those who have raised Tan Kam Lam, Lang Kai Chang, Sin Chung Kai. 4 minutes each, please. Mr. Chen Kam Lam first. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to thank the many deputations that come here today. Your views are very good. You may differ in your stance, but I think you have had we have had some rational discussions, good suggestions on how to go forward in developing the electricity market. I have several questions for the deputations as well. You focused on reserve capacity, environmental protection, and liberalization of the market, regulatory framework, how it can be enhanced, and so on. On environmental protection, as we all understand, we are talking about renewable energy all the time, but it seems that there hasn't been any major breakthrough. The investment amount still remains high, but then the power generated, the efficiency is not very satisfactory. If we have a high ratio of RE, that means the tariffs will be affected. It will go up substantially. So I would like to ask you, do you have any suggestions on the ratio of RE? With regard to reserve capacity, we now have a 30% reserve capacity. Of course, we would like to attach importance to safe and reliable supply. But have you considered that many manufacturing activities have been relocated outside of Hong Kong? And it's very rare that electricity will peak, say, in the middle of the night. So under this circumstance, do we still need to retain a high level of reserve capacity? What is the reasonable level of reserve capacity? Do you have any figure in mind? A majority of you seem to want a very safe and reliable supply. You haven't mentioned anything about the adjustment of the reserve capacity. That can help save on costs, and it's also very environmentally friendly because the fewer generating units are in operation, the lower is the pollution. If we can reduce the reserve capacity, then we will bring benefits on several fronts. Also, should we establish an incentive and penalty scheme to encourage power companies to do a better job in the repair and maintenance of the generating units? Perhaps you can draw up some indicators or targets on energy emission so that there can be some assessment. So who can answer my questions? Well, anyone who is interested in replying can give an answer. Perhaps Dr. Cho, because you've done some research in that area, I believe. 4 minutes should include the questions and answers. Well, I'll be very flexible on the timing. It's because it seems that we have ample time today. And Dr. Cho, sorry, the speaker is not coming through. I support fully the development of RE, but Hong Kong has a unique as a geographical location, and the climate here has to be taken on board. We are near the equator, so if we are talking about wind power, then there is nothing much we can do. For example, in Europe, Inner Mongolia, and Southern Europe, they are far away from the equator, so they have greater potential for wind power generation. From the information that I have, we need to invest over $10 billion to generate wind power. We can only have 600 million kWh, and that makes up only 1.4% of the total electricity consumption here. So that means an increase of electricity tariff of 1 to 2%. And we have questions on the cost effectiveness as a result. And also we may have to pay costs in, well, we have to consider costs in, say, in social costs and medical costs and so on. Now, with regard to solar energy, Dr. Cho, can you be more succinct? I will give you an extra 30 seconds. Well, we can consider resorting to solar energy. Mr. Orr has also raised his hand. Do you want to respond? I'll be very brief. On RE, the bottleneck is that the units may break down easily because we don't have, say, the sunshine and the winds all the time. And the Lion Rock Institute thinks the environmental protection is not the greatest problem in Hong Kong, but rather the mainland Hong Kong conflict is the greatest problem. We should penalize the power companies for selling too much electricity. Our institute doesn't understand Greenpeace stance. You want to have a cut in electricity, but then you want people to consume less energy. These seem to be in conflict. Well, Transformer is my most favorite movie. Mr. Kenneth Leung. Chairman, I have a very fundamental question. Nuclear energy. Many deputations have different views on nuclear energy. Green groups, friends from the business have different stance. recently, I've met with energy officials from Germany and France. And Germany and Japan have been trying to do away with nuclear energy recently, and because Japan, obviously, because of the Fukushima incident, they have a plan that by 2030 they would phase out all nuclear energy and they would use solar power and wind power instead. And several days ago, I met a delegation from France. France is very advanced in terms of nuclear energy, and 75% of the electricity is generated by nuclear energy. Hong Kong hasn't forged a consensus on this yet. I have a technical question. The benefits of nuclear energy is it's cheaper than natural gas, and it's zero emission. These are the merits. There are disadvantages, of course. Scientific data show that it may not be safe, and there is also the problem of disposal of nuclear waste. But the French people told me that they've been doing a very good job in dealing with nuclear waste. They put it in a container, which is something like a swimming pool, and they are actually disposing nuclear waste for other countries as well. Now, for the mainland, they are doing it differently. They may bury it under the sand. So I would like to hear your views on how safe you think the nuclear energy is. Or who do you want to direct your question to? Well, anyone can answer my question. Please give them 1 minute, Chairman. Mr. Xiu Ka-fai, 1 minute. Mr. Shin Park-man, 1 minute. Thank you, Chairman. On the question of nuclear energy, of course there are risks, as we all know. But the question is, 50 nuclear plants will be built by 2020. Around Hong Kong. So we will suffer from risk even if we are not buying the energy. We are shouldering the risks all the same. And we are not enjoying the use of the nuclear energy. So this is my stance. Some countries have better ways of dealing with nuclear waste, and they are recommending it to the mainland. That is a good thing. If they can deal with the nuclear waste better, then we are better protected in terms of safety, so we can pass on the information to the mainland. Mr. Xun, the Secretary, would say that, well, perhaps you can take my seat after having heard the members' views. The landfill issue has been discussed among the 18 district councils, and the proposal raises a lot of queries and objections. And I think it is very difficult in implementing the nuclear energy policy. Secretary, do you have anything to add? Some people talk about the cheaper unit cost for nuclear energy from Daya Bay. In our paper, we said that because of historical reasons, the Daya Bay plant offers a lower price. But if there is a new plant to be built, then the price will be very different. It will be very similar to the cost of the the natural gas. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, we are talking about a new regulatory framework. My question for the deputations is this. We've talked a lot about RE, and wind power comes with a lot of problems too, as the professor said. What about solar energy? In some districts, there is a net metering approach. In other words, when there is good sunshine, solar energy is created, the energy can be put onto the network. And can that be done? Well, if this is done, should that be written into the regulatory framework, saying that the two power companies should not be banning such putting up of electricity by the solar energy providers? Peak demand. refers to when all the, say, air conditioners are switched on, and at that time, actually, the sunshine is the greatest also. So do you think that under the regulatory framework, power supply should not be allowed to reject solar energy providers to put their energy, surplus energy, onto their power grids? In December last year, there was a proposal on the distributed generation. And this means that small generating units producing RE and also biofuel energy, these units can be installed in buildings. Now, if they have excessive electricity generated, they can be put on the power network. While in overseas jurisdictions, there is also a mechanism to regulate the collaboration of such small generating units with the big power suppliers. We don't have such a mechanism in place in Hong Kong. In Tokyo, San Francisco, Sydney, and Chicago, we have such mechanisms already. And in Hong Kong, we do have such examples as well. The question is whether we should have a proper regulatory framework governing such activities. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this same subject? If not, Secretary, do you have any supplement? Thank you for your question. Actually, we've spent quite some efforts in laying out how RE can be done in Hong Kong, and actually RE projects and in the hundreds in Hong Kong. There is no problem of power companies refusing the small units to be collaborating with them. Now, if there is excessive or reserve capacity to be put on the power grid, there is no mechanism in place now. Now, say if a building has solar energy generated, biofuel generated, then there is no mechanism for the excess capacity or the excess electricity to be put on the power grid. Well, there are proposals on net metering, fit-in tariff. We have an open mind towards such activities and mechanisms. In your future regulatory mechanism, would you be stipulating the feed-in tariff scheme? There are 5 specific questions asked in the consultation paper, and there are questions on how we should support the development RE, and we should also take reference from overseas jurisdictions.
Albert Chan, on the question of power generation, there are 3 issues of concern, and they're rather, controversial and mutually exclusive. The first question is the question of price. Secondly, the environment, and thirdly, safety. For example, nuclear energy is relatively cheap, but it will have an impact on people's safety. There is also the question of disposal of nuclear waste. Renewable energy is expensive, but they take up less space. And there are also, technical, difficult obstacles to overcome. So we've been generating electricity for many years. We started out using coal, and then we migrated to natural gas. But natural gas has become more expensive recently. So in Hong Kong, ever since the 1990s, we have been experimenting with the use of renewable energy. And we've also had, produced some windmills, but they're not very successful. Years ago, we also explored the possibility of using, tides to generate electricity. Again, there had not been any breakthroughs. More people are using solar panels. In Seoul, they have miles and miles of, government land, which are used to install, solar panels, but we haven't done that in Hong Kong. I'd like to know why in Hong Kong, or what, given the natural geographic environment and the climate conditions in Hong Kong, which type of renewable energy is more suitable for use in Hong Kong and is more cost effective? Now, who would like to respond? Mr. Hong. I think over the past few decades, the development of renewable energies have been. I think we were mainly relying on the two power companies. Basically, we were encouraging to, providing incentives to the power companies. That is, if they invest in renewable energy, we give them an additional 0.5 percentage point of return. In Taiwan, Singapore, and South Korea, they have adopted a different approach. And some of the deputations have already mentioned that they have a sort of a fixed, price for grid access, and then the power companies will weigh the risks of the investments. And the people who provide the finance can also consider whether or not this is actually a viable investment. So this is already being done in other jurisdictions and is proven to be very cost effective. I hope Hong Kong will also consider this approach. In Hong Kong, if we use renewable energy such as wind, solar, or hydro, which type of RE is more suitable for Hong Kong to develop? Technically and in terms of our geographic conditions, is it feasible? I think that will be a decision for the investments, and it's also to be decided by the experts. It is not for those of us here who don't have the technical expertise to provide the answers. I think even for the experts to give us the views, I think the most important decision is to be made by the investor. The question is whether or not the investment is viable. If it's not, nobody will make the investment. Mr. Xun, as to which type of renewable energy is suitable, to be honest, none of the renewable energies are suitable for Hong Kong. Mathematically, and also, if you look at the financial market, there is no renewable energy that is really so viable. If you go for smart metering and allow people to generate their own electricity, then I think the load on the network is very, very high. And if you have a guaranteed rate of return, the power companies will have very good justifications to increase the tariffs. All these alternative energies, unless you can, allow the consumers to choose to buy the more expensive renewable energies. If you force all the consumers to buy electricity, renewable energy, then I think the impact on the tariff will be very substantial, and I don't know how the members would react. Secretary, we've heard many views today. The government has published its consultation paper. The deputations have also made comments in respect of the points raised in the paper. A few years ago, there had been a lot of discussion in Hong Kong about nuclear energy, but ever since Fukushima, many people are now very wary of nuclear energy. We all know that in southern China, there are already many nuclear power plants which are being built or which have been built already. In the consultation paper, you've also suggested that we should buy electricity from the mainland, and we don't know, what is the fuel which we use to generate such electricity. It could be nuclear. There had also been a lot of discussion regarding renewable energy, and Mr. Albert Chen also made the same point. My understanding is that renewable energy certainly is not cheap, especially wind power. And also it requires a lot of space, and the impact on the environment is also something which of concern for many people. And Dr. Xun also told us that different groups will put pressure on you So how do you come up with the right balance that will, ensure that you get a maximum benefit for the people of Hong Kong while it is safe and cheap? So how can you achieve that objective, Secretary? Thank you, Chairman. First of all, the public consultation last year was about the fuel mix for the future electricity market, and the response from the public was very enthusiastic. Our paper this time actually has sums up the findings of the consultation last time, in respect of the public's views regarding tariff and so on, and the direction for fuel mix. 50% should be nuclear, so that we can achieve the objective of reducing carbon emission and also improving air quality. That is really the broad direction. As to how we can strike a balance between, reasonable tariff and environmental protection, that certainly is a challenge for Hong Kong. But I can put it simply, that is that through different means, and also, making the right choice in terms of the future fuel mix. And in future, if we agree to stick to the existing scheme of control arrangement and enhancing the terms, and bringing in an incentive or penalty scheme, then I think we should be able to strike the right balance. Many members refer to renewable energy. Technically, other than wind and solar, the paper also discusses different technologies, especially converting waste to energy. For example, government is building facilities turning kitchen waste into energy, and also in our landfills we can make use of landfill gases. Recently in the North District, a hospital is using such landfill gases to generate electricity for the hospital. So if we could make good use of such renewable energy, so if in future if we could have mechanism to encourage individual buildings to make use of such opportunities, that would be an option. We may not need to require the whole of Hong Kong to shoulder the cost. The general public, I think over the last few years, tariff had not been put up. So while we can allow different groups to try out renewable energy at the same time, Secretary, I think the public may not fully understand some of the things the government is doing. So how can you do more in terms of public education and publicity? For example, next to the landfill in Tuen Mun, you are also using renewable energy to operate the silk or the sludge treatment plant. So how can you do a better job in terms of public education and publicity? Well, in our present public consultation, I think we've already proposed a blueprint, and we will enhance our public education in terms of how we can combat climate change and how we can make better use of renewable energy. We will also build a platform to collect public opinion, and we will also provide more information. Mr. Leung Kai-chiang, for the second round. I support the proposal to build up a facility to store natural gas in Hong Kong. I think in the days of Donald Tsang, that project was almost coming on stream, but for some reasons it was abandoned. I think if we look at the storage facilities for natural gas in Singapore, they can use bunkers, and some people even suggest the building of an artificial island. That was in respect of nuclear energy. But I think we can also build an artificial island as a storage facility for natural gas. So I'd like to ask the deputations this question. That is, if we were to build a storage facility for natural gas, how would they respond to that proposal? Secretary, in terms of natural gas storage, so what land could Hong Kong, provide for that purpose? Or if we're going to buy natural gas versus storing natural gas in Hong Kong, what are the pros and cons? Chairman, what I can say is that the two power companies right now and going forward are able to obtain supply of natural gas from different sources, including Western gas, transmitted to Eastern China. So I think the two power companies are exhausting different ways to find, additional sources of natural gas. The government has an open mind in terms of the technical assessment and so on. So we welcome many proposals. Mr. James Dean. Chairman, first of all, I apologize for being late. I think on this subject of electricity, I think the public, including the business sector, are most concerned about how much the tariff is going to be. I think we've been councillors for so many years, Mr. Chairman. I think the scheme of controlled arrangement, why is it that we allow such a high rate of return? It was because in the 1980s, the global economy wasn't performing very well. We had high inflation. Interest rate was very high. If you place money in a fixed deposit, you can get a interest rate of 89%, and that's why the first, permitted rate of return was 15% for the first scheme of control. And they were not really making too much profit because the interest rate was very high. In recent years, of course, recently the rate of return was adjusted to 9.9%, but in the last few years, the global economy has performed very poorly, and no company no public utility in the world can get a return of 9.9%. That is almost like a windfall. So definitely not be within your portfolio, Mr. Secretary. Given that the economy is changing so rapidly, I don't think you can come up with a scheme for 15 years with a fixed rate of return. Is it now 12 years? Oh, I'm sorry, I might have mixed up the number. Why can't you consider a 5-year arrangement? I think you have a 10-year agreement, and then after 5 years, you can take into consideration the state of the global economy, the prevailing rate of interest, and then, set a reasonable rate of return. The public now may think that a return of 4 to 5% is already very, very good. The HKM may only achieve, a return of 1.4% for its investment. So if you can get 4 to 5% return, the HKMA should invest its funds into the two power companies. So will you consider adjusting the rate of return? Because this will have an impact on the tariffs which the public eventually has to pay. Chairman, I think there are several issues that we can explore here. First of all, the consultation paper also poses one question. That is, we agreed that we should go for a contract, and how long should be the contract period. In the past, it was 15. Recently, it's 10, plus another 5 years of extension. In future, should we still go for the 10 plus 5, years, subject to a midterm review? We can certainly discuss that. But for such investments like generating units, they have a service life of 30 years. If you invest into any grid, we're talking about 50 years. Mr. Dean is also a businessman. and you certainly would appreciate that, although the interest rate will fluctuate in the short and medium term, but the investment period straddles over several decades. So when the investor makes his decision, if he is offered, a rate of return, then I think the previous model for an investment which straddles such a long period, how can we strike the right balance is important. This time we have engaged an investment consultant to help us look at the rate of return for similar power electricity companies, and 6 to 8% is considered to be reasonable. Now, as a businessman myself, today I will not borrow money for with a term of 15 years, because the money that I borrow now, the rate will be HIBOR plus something. So for even the power company were to make an investment of 15 years, the interest rate that they pay to bank will be adjusted every year. So any big businessman will not, adopt the financing model that you suggested. I think that's almost time for this session of our discussion. I'd like to thank all the deputations and individuals for joining us this morning. I also like to remind those who have not yet put in the submissions, or if you have further submissions that please give them to us after the meeting. Our next session will start at 11:05.